Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in my last video, we set up Authentic using Docker as an OAuth provider, but I've been looking for something that better fits my NixOS environment. So today, I'm going to be switching it up and I'm going to be diving into Authelia. And I'm just going to be configured mostly through NixOS. I have no containers, no UIs, just clean config files. I'll walk you through setting up Authelia as an OpenID provider, integrating it with your services, and then keeping everything mostly modular and maintainable. So before we begin, let's quickly cover some of the prereqs. Just like my other videos, I use flakes within my setup, so you'll need to have flakes enabled. And here's how you can do that if you don't know. Within your configuration.nix file, you just want to add the line nix setting experimental features, nix command, nix flakes. And then also you want to add Authelia binary to your environment system packages. This will mainly be used for when we're generating secrets. And then also you may, and this depends on your environment, you may need to add port 9091 to your allowed TCP ports. So Authelia's web UI runs on port 9091 by default. If this port isn't open in the firewall, you may not be able to access your login portal. So within my own production environment, I didn't need to explicitly open this port, but for some reason on my test server, I had to configure this. And then lastly, traffic. I use traffic for all my reverse proxies across all my services. It handles my TLS routing. If you haven't seen my traffic setup yet, please go out and watch that. All right, so if you meet all those prereqs, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so first let's break down the authelia.nix module that I'm using to declaratively configure Authelia as a OIDC identity provider within my NixOS system. So just a heads up, the documentation for Authelia on NixOS is very sparse. The official NixOS wiki barely scratches the surface, and the module options aren't well documented. So I leaned heavily on the official Authelia docs to piece all of this together. But for the most part, I have it up and working. Let's go through the module now. So this let block is used to define variables before the main configuration begins. So in this case, we're preparing the JWix key that Authelia uses, or that will use to sign its OpenID Connect tokens. So this key is a multi-line string that contains a PIM formatted private key. So Authelia uses this as part of its OpenID provider setup. While within this demo that I'm using is hard-coded for simplicity. This obviously isn't ideal for production, and you'll want to inject this key securely, preferably using something like SOPs or some sort of secret runtime secret manager. So I've been experimenting with different ways to do this declaratively on Nix, but I haven't found a clean solution yet. According to Authelia's official docs, the recommended way is to use template filters to load secrets at runtime, but integrating this with the Nix language and environment, it has been very tricky for me to figure out. If you found a reliable way to do this securely and declaratively, I'd love to hear about it. Please drop it in the comment or reach out. Moving on to the systemd. So by default, protect system is enabled, which sandboxes your services. But when that is enabled, it broke rights, for at least for my environment, it broke right to the notification.txt file, which I'll explain more later. So essentially, Authelia would try to write to a temp path that kept changing. So what I did was I had to override the default to disable protected system and private temp to keep things stable. So the services Authelia instance test. This enables your Authelia instance, so you can name this to whatever you want. Mine is just called test. Next up, we're defining secrets. So these are critical for session signing as well as encrypting your local storage. Again, I recommend managing these with stops or some other secure secret injection method. With this, I'm not going over stops. I did this in a few of my previous videos, but you can check check them out on how to implement that. The next section defines how Authelia authenticate users. So Authelia supports multiple backends such as LDAP or a local file. So in this case, we're using a local file backend here for simplicity. And I'll go over what that YAML file looks like later on in the video. But this essentially is where your users are defined. The session cookies. So these define how Authelia handles your session cookies. So just keep in mind, you'll want to match the domain and URL to your actual deployment. And then you have your local SQLite storage and your file-based notification. This is all configured right here. You want to make sure these paths are writable within your own environment. So this setup right here is good for small scale setups or testing, but for production, you might want to switch your local storage from SQLite to something like Postgres. So next up, you have your access control policies. So these rules enforce one-factor or two-factor authentication for specific domains and user groups. This gives you a fine-grained control over who and what they can access. And then you can easily expand this to cover more services or roles as your setup grows. So in my video, I'll be showcasing two examples. One which will be Immich, which will authenticate directly via Authelia's OIDC provider. And then I'm going to also set up Uptime Kuma, which will sit behind Authelia as a protected service using the reverse proxy integration. So this just gives us a nice contrast between the identity provider as well as the proxy-based authentication flows. And then the last section we have, this is your OIDC provider section. This is where you'll configure Authelia to be a OIDC provider. So you'll need to configure, like I said before, the JWITS key, which we defined at the top. You'll also need to generate an HMAT secret. I'll show you how to do that. This is used for your token integrity. And then also your client ID as well as your client secret will need to be generated as well. And then you have your redirect URLs. This is where the authentication server can send users after they log in. So this is specific for Immich. It'll be different for every service that you set up for the most part. But for Immich, we have the app one. This is the custom URI scheme for mobile apps. So if you're using the Immich mobile app, it'll work there. And then you have two other ones. The main login redirect is the auth.login. And then you have the user settings, which is mostly used for re-authentication or setting related flows. Then you have scopes. So scopes define what kind of access the user is requesting. And then grant types. So this tells the server which OAuth flow the client will use. So authorization code is the most secure. It involves a user login and a code exchange. And then you have your response types. It matches the grant type, so it expects an authorization code in response to a login request. And then you have your token endpoint auth method, which specifies how the client will authenticate when exchanging the code for a token. So just client secret basic means it'll use the basic auth with client ID and secret. All right, so let's talk about secrets now. So let's just go ahead and generate the WKS key that Authelia used to sign its OpenID Connect tokens. And we can create this key using the Authelia binary. This is the command. You want to use Authelia crypto pair RSA generate. And it'll create a private.pem and a public.pem key. So it just output it in your current directory. I did set up a directory just called keys outside of my config directory. So for the private.pem key, you'll paste this into your JWKS key variable within your Nix module. So you can just go ahead and cat that. And you're going to take the entire key and you're going to paste it into your module. And then the public key, clients can use that to verify tokens, but it's not really needed in this situation. Next up, we need to generate the JWT token as well as the storage encryption key. So both of these keys are the exact same way you'll generate them. But before we do that, let's go ahead and we'll need to create the Authelia directory within Xe. So Authelia supports several ways to generate these values, but I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to continue to use the Authelia built-in binary. So the command we just ran, it essentially created two files, the encryption key.txt as well as the jwit-secret.txt, and it placed it within the Xe Authelia directory. As you can see, I just cat out the encryption key.txt. It created just a 64 alphanumeric string prefix for secrets, right? So we'll also need to change the owner and group of these two files to the Authelia user, but you won't be able to set up the ownership until after the service has been started at least once. At least when I ran through it, that's what happened to me. And that's when your Nix system will create that Authelia user and group. All right, so now let's generate the HMAC secret used by Authelia OpenID Connect provider. So again, this key is used to sign and verify tokens internally, and this code needs to be strong and unique. Just like with the JWT and storage encryption secrets, we can generate it using the Authelia binary, and it'll be the same command too. So we're just going to print it directly onto the screens. We're going to copy this random value, and we're just going to paste it within our module. All right, so to finish up with secrets, we'll have to generate the client ID and the client secret for each service that we want to integrate. So in this example, we're going to be setting it up for Immich. And again, we're going to be using Authelia's binary. This makes it easy. It has built-in crypto tools. So first, let's generate the client ID. We're going to use this command right here. Authelia crypto ran link 72 character set RFC 3986. And we're going to copy this random value. And we're going to place it within our client ID. All right, now let's generate the client secret. There's a command for that as well, using which will generate a password and hash using PDK DDF2 as well as SHA-12. And what I did was, when I ran the command, I just saved the output into a text file, pass.txt, because you'll want to keep this somewhere secure until we're able to put it into or configure within Immich. But essentially, you'll get two outputs. You'll get the random password, and this is the plain text password you'll use when you configure Immich to authenticate via Authelia. And then you also get the digest, which is the hash secret, and this is what we'll use to paste, or we're going to paste this into our Authelia module. Again, make sure you keep the password, the plain text password, safe. This is just will be temporarily saved within the text file, and then just make sure you delete it later on after you configure it within Immich. All right, so next up, let's take a look at how users are defined in Authelia using the users database.yaml file. So this is where you'll declare local users, their credentials, and group memberships. So first off, we can create this file. We're just going to place it within the Xe Authelia directory. And then for my setup, this is what I'm going to use. So Genie, so this will be the username used to log in. And then you have the display name, which is just like a friendly name that's shown within the UI. And then the password, so this will be a hash password using Argon 2 ID. You can generate this password using Authelia binary as well. I'll show you that real quick. Make sure you save. So you'll run Authelia crypto hash generate Argon 2, and then the password, you just type in whatever password you want. For me, I'm just going to put password 123. And then it spits out that digest hash, so you'll copy that. And then you'll want to paste that within your user database.yaml file. And then you also have your email as well as your groups. So your groups are used to map users to access control rules, like we saw in the access control rules policy. So in our example, the user Genie belongs to the admin group as well as users, meaning they'll match any rule targeting either group. So as you can see, like Immich, any group, any users in the group users will be able to access Immich. Then Uptime Kuma, any person user in the group admins will be able to access Uptime Kuma. This just gives you a flexible role-based access control across all of your protected services. All right, so now that our authelia.nix module is ready, we can go ahead and import that into our configuration.nix file. So if you head over to your configuration.nix at the top right here, you'll just make sure you include authelia.nix. Make sure it matches whatever directory you have yours in. Then once that's in place, you'll save, and then you'll run the command NixOS rebuild switch flake command. And then once it's built, Authelia will be activated, but the service will likely fail. We'll see if it does. If it does, don't panic. This is expected. So once your system is rebuilt, you can check the status of it using the systemctl status, Authelia, and then minus test.service. So whatever you named yours, minus test. So it'll be the name.service. If yours failed, don't panic. It's expected. It's likely due to permission issues, like I mentioned earlier. And you'll just have to fix the ownership, and we can do that right now. Mine didn't fail. I'm guessing it's because I ran this earlier, but essentially you'll want to run the change own to match the user right here for all of these files that we created, as well as a change mod as well. And then once you do that, then you can restart your service, and it should be good if everything was done right. Then you can also run adrenalctl to look at your logs to make sure everything is up and running smoothly. All right, so let's head over to the Authelia homepage, and let's try to log in with the user we created earlier. So again, I'm using traffic to configure my domain. If you need help doing that, please watch my previous videos on that. But the traffic configuration was already done in the background. So what I'm going to do is go to authelia.test.geniehome.net, and I'm going to try to log in with the user we created earlier. So Genie, username, password 123. All right, good. So once logged in, Authelia will prompt you to register a device for two-factor authentication. So what you want to do is you want to click register device, and you'll be given two options: the one-time password or the WebAuthn credentials. So for this video, I'm just going to do the OTP, but if you got like a YubiKey or another WebAuthn device, that works too. So I'm going to click add. And then once you click add, Authelia will ask to verify your identity by sending you a one-time code to your email. But for our setup, we're using notification.txt. So Authelia will write the notifications to a local file instead of sending emails or instead of sending out emails. And you can go to that file, and then you can quickly identify, or you can quickly grab the code by running this command right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cat the notifications.txt, which lives under the var lib authelia test directory. And here's the code right here. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to paste it within Authelia, one-time code. It's going to verify it. All right, so now we can register our OTP device. So I'm just going to click next. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my Vault Warden instance to scan the QR code and register my device. I'm just going to use my phone to do that, but you can use any authenticator app that you like. A Google Authenticator, Authy, just whatever works for you. All right, once that's done, we've got 2FA set up and we're ready to go. Now we're going to try to test it out, but first let's go ahead and configure Immich to use the OpenID Connect. All right, so we can start by logging into Immich. And you just want to click on your profile picture and head over to administration. And then from there, you want to go to settings. And then you'll go to authentication settings and then OAuth. And then you just want to click in the tab for login with OAuth, and then you're going to fill out the following fields. So you'll want to fill out the issuer URL. So this just tells Immich where to find Authelia's OIDC metadata. This is what you want to use. And then you'll want to fill out the client ID and client secret. So again, this is the value we generated earlier for Immich. The client ID, you'll just copy that from your authelia.nix module. Let's go back to that real quick. So here's the client ID. I'm going to copy this, paste it for client ID. And then for the client secret, this is the unhashed password that we generated and we saved it in the pass.txt file. So let's go ahead and grab that now. And for me, I saved it into a keys directory. And I'm going to grab this random password, copy it, and then I'm going to paste it to my client secret. Before I go on, now that I have it pasted, I'm going to delete this file right here, just to be on the safe side. And then I just want to make sure you set the scope to OpenID, email, and profile. And these are the attributes that Immich will request from Authelia during login. And then you'll just have the ID token response algorithm, RS-256. The response sign algorithm, none. Then I believe everything else should be left to the default values. And then you'll just click save. Also, if you have auto register enabled, this will allow Immich to automatically create new users when they log in via Authelia. So now what I want to do is, I don't want to create a new user when I log in via Authelia. I want to link my Authelia user to an existing user within Immich. So how you do that is you'll go over, you click on your profile picture again, and you'll go to account settings. And then you'll go down to OAuth, and then you want to click on link to OAuth. And then a new page will open up where it's asking you to log in via your credentials that we configured earlier. And then once you log in, it's going to ask you that Authelia is requesting the following permissions. We have our OpenID, your email, and then your profile information. I'm just going to click next or accept. And now Immich is fully integrated with Authelia for that secure authentication. So let's test it out real quick to make sure that it works as expected. So I'm going to log out of Immich, and as you can see now, I see the login with OAuth button. So I'm just going to click that, and then I'm already logged in as Authelia, so it's just asking again if I want to accept it. So I click accept, and then now I'm fully logged in back into Immich using Authelia. Alright, so now let's take a quick look at how I use Authelia as a forward authentication provider with traffic, so specifically to protect my Uptime Kuma instance. Now, like I said before, this isn't a traffic tutorial. I have other videos for that. I'm just showing you how easily it is for Authelia to plug into traffic as a middleware. And this same approach works for other reverse proxies too, like Nginx or Caddy. So within my traffic.nix module, here's my Authelia block right here, which is basically telling traffic to forward incoming requests to Authelia for authentication and to pass back the user metadata headers to the services. And then we look at our router definitions for Uptime Kuma, and just make sure that you have the middlewares Authelia included within your middlewares. And now when you visit Uptime Kuma, traffic's going to redirect you to Authelia for authentication before granting access to Uptime Kuma. We can see that workflow real quick. Right here. I'm just going to log in. And then as you can see, I'm logged in. This flow is clean, secure, and reusable. And that's pretty much it. We successfully integrated Authelia into our NixOS setup, configured secure authentication flows for Immich, as well as protected services like Uptime Kuma that sits behind traffic using forward authentication. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing or sharing it with someone who's setting up their own secure infrastructure. If you have any questions, ideas, or you want to see more deep dive like this, please drop them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Until next time.